What's up, guys? Mr. Roland here, and welcome to Art Design. Today we're going to be drawing a 3D hand. And hands down, hands are probably the hardest thing to draw along with faces. So the techniques I'm going to be teaching you today will hopefully help you draw a more realistic looking hand. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and show you exactly how to get started and what you're going to need. So for today's assignment, if you have an eraser, a pen, a pencil, and a ruler, they will help, but you really can get everything done with just a crummy little pencil like mine. So you don't need a ton of supplies. And the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna trace our hand. So put your hand down on the page. And I'm using oversized paper, but that's just because I'm doing this online. You can use any paper that you have. Probably blank paper works the best. And you probably have done this a number of times. I remember back in elementary school, we used to trace our hands to make turkeys. And you might have even come across this assignment at some point. It's a pretty popular assignment. And I'm really taking my time as I'm going around here. And if I were you, I would do it very lightly, but I'm doing mine kind of dark so that it shows up better on the camera. If you go too fast, you end up distorting the shape of your fingers, or you make them too skinny or too wide. So let's see how we did. All right, I'd say that's pretty realistic looking. Okay, and so what have I done here? I traced my hand. So, and let's call that a line. But in reality, it's called a contour line. Whenever you outline something, it's called a contour line. And it looks like a hand, but it's just flat. This is two-dimensional. There is no form to it. It just looks like a piece of paper with an outline on it. So we're going to try to make this pop off the page by using a couple techniques. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to draw lines to go behind it. All right, so I'm going to use a pen for this so that it really stands out to you guys. And this is what you could use the ruler for. Once again, you can freehand this. Just might take you a little bit longer, might look a little sloppier. And I'm just going almost, I don't know, every half inch. And what these lines are serving as is kind of background in this negative space around the hand to make it the table, to make it appear as if the hand is resting on a flat surface. So we want to mimic the flatness of the table, so the lines are flat. And when we go, we're going to do the same thing with the hand when we put but we're not going to put straight lines on the hand. We are going to put curved lines to mimic the shape of the hand. And already just doing this, it kind of creates a nice contrast. The hand stands out a lot more. It's almost like an easy, simplified way of coloring the entire background in. And you want to make sure that the lines, you're trying to keep them as straight as possible, just for consistency. You don't want it to look sloppy. We're almost done. All right. So we've got our flat background. Now, we want to make the hand appear as if it's three-dimensional. See, my arm's rounded, my hand's rounded. It has shape to it. It has form. So it goes up here maybe a couple inches, a little flatter down here at the top. And the way we're going to mimic that is by wrapping a line, or make it appear as if a line is wrapping around the hand, almost as if you were to take a shoelace or a piece of string and wrap it around your arm. You'd be able to see it curve. It wouldn't be flat like these lines in the background. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to start off with kind of bigger curved lines. Almost looks like, to make it appear as if it's wrapping around the hand. And I'm doing this with pen because I've done this a handful of times. So I don't feel too bad doing it, but you can easily mess up. So you might want to start off, like I tell all of my students, you might want to start off really light and with the pencil, because even I'm going to make mistakes doing this. And these lines that are going across the hand, these are called cross contour lines. Because they go across. And you can do this with any object, really. So if you wanted to draw a picture of an apple, you could add the curved lines going on it in both directions, wrapping around it and going up and down. We're not going to have any lines going up and down, though, for this one. Okay, so first element of art is line. And what we've just created here before was a shape, and it was an organic shape because it was our hand. So it was not like a box or a circle. So it was an organic shape. Now, to me, this looks cool, and it was really a quick way to make the hand appear as if it was three-dimensional, but it still just looks kind of cartoony, still looks a little flat. So one way that we can enhance this is by adding value. And once again, value is how light or dark something is. How light or dark your drawing is. And we're going to do that with shading. So let's switch back to our pencil for a second. And we're going to pretend that there's a light source coming down onto the hand, which you can see even. And you can see I have multiple light sources, and it's casting a shadow over here. There's highlights on the nails. So we're going to try to mimic that right now. So I'm going to pretend like the light's coming in from this direction, and it's going to cast a shadow onto this part of the arm. So I'm going to go ahead and darken this up on this side. And I'm just adding shading. Now I'm using the side of my pencil to get a broader movement. And I'm going to slowly fade this out. And then I'm going to do the same thing for each one of the fingers. So I'm going to start over here, darken it up. So when I'm doing it, by darkening it, I am making it appear as if it's resting in a shadow. It's casting a shadow on the inside of it. Same thing for all of these. Soften them up a little bit. And then I'm going to go back and cheat. I know I'm not supposed to do this, but it's just so much fun. I'm going to go back and I'm going to blend this with my finger a little bit to kind of just bring that out so it softens it. And the reason why you're supposed to use a blending tool, but they're kind of hard to come by. You can't just pick it up at the supermarket where you might be buying your supplies. So that's why I like to show you. This just softens it up, but what it does is this creates a little barrier between, because you have acids on the end of your finger, and it creates a little barrier in between the page and your pencil. So if you do this too much, you're not gonna be able to draw over in that section. So you kind of want to limit yourself to the amount of time that you can do that. So by adding that shadow right there, we've created a little bit of value, a little contrast, and it's made the hand stand out a little bit more. And I'm just going to keep working on that, and I'm just going to try to adding dark tones and highlights until I feel like it's made the hand as three-dimensional as possible. So I'm going to go back over and kind of darken this outline up, this contour line, because I did a good job on it. It's done, so I don't need to go back and redo it. That's why I started off light, because in case I made a mistake, I always start off light, as should you, so that you save yourself time in the end. You never want to start off on the detail. The detail comes at the end. So at this point, you shouldn't really be drawing any of the fingernails or any wrinkles in the hand. That's going to come once we're finally done, making sure that everything's in the right place, it looks right. All right, so that helped it stand out a little bit more. I think I can add a line up here. It's kind of bugging me. There we go. Maybe just one right there. All right. But when you see when I put my actual hand down, it actually casts the shadow. So we're going to try to mimic the cast shadow now onto this table. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to shade, instead of on the arm in the hand, I'm going to shade right next to it. And I'm going to come out maybe 1/4 inch all the way around. And I'm leaving a little tiny, you can't, maybe it's hard to see, but I'm leaving a little bit of a gap in between. I'm not just drawing right up next to it, because light bounces back in there and it's not 100% dark right back in those crevices. So you want to leave some little gaps, some little imperfection spots, just to make it look more realistic. If you try to force it, it's going to look a little rigid. So there we go, it's casting a shadow, and I'm going to do the same thing across the hand so that it makes it look uniform, like the light's hitting it in the same way across the whole hand. Probably should be darkest in these creases here where there's probably the least amount of lights coming in. And you notice I'm not going to put a shadow over here, because then that would mean that light's coming in from this way and in from this way. I'm just going to pretend that we have one unified light source. I'm going to pause for a second, see if I like it. It's okay. I could definitely spend more time. I'm just showing you guys kind of like the crash course on this. And since it's a soft shadow, I'm going to go and cheat and blend it in again with my finger. And there are blending tools for this. You can pick them up at any art supply store, but you might not be able to get it wherever you're getting your material. So I'm switching fingers now because I've already got too much on that one. So that just softens the edge up on it. I think I could push the darkness a little bit more. So I'm going to go back onto the arm one more time and really darken that edge up, kind of come up a little bit more. And now we should really see the hand starting to pop up. So you might have to, just depending on your skill level and how well you can shade, you might have to go over it a few times. I mean, anything worth doing is worth doing right. So give it some effort. Let's see. And I feel like I'm really starting to see the hand kind of pop up now. And the shadow is starting to look pretty realistic. All right, so that definitely has some depth to it. Just softening up the edges on that. All right. So what are we missing now? So we've created form, and form is essentially, it has 3 dimensions. Okay, so it does not look, we started off and this just looked like a flat piece of paper with an outline of a hand on it. And now it actually looks like it's sitting on the page. But to me, what it looks like is that it just looks like a fake hand. Like there's no detail, there's no texture to the hand. It almost looks like it's made out of marble or glass or plastic. It's very smooth. So in the way that we apply now line and value, we're going to put in some of the detail like the fingernails, the ridges for where your knuckles are. Up here, you got all kinds of, if you really look at it, all kinds of detail. Now, can you capture all that? It depends on how much time you spend in. So let's try to put some texture in so that it actually looks like a real hand. And this is implied texture. Like if we were making a real hand, we would be able to, like out of clay, you'd want to be able to feel the ridges, but it just feels flat. So we're just going to have to make it look like it's going to feel like a real hand. So let's start off with the fingernails. And I'm just making a U shape for the fingernails. And I'm just going right up to the edge. And this one's going to be off to the side a little bit because your thumb has a little bit of a curve to it. Okay, so already, and then I can maybe kind of make it come out a little bit depending on what type of nails you have. All right, let's put the knuckle marks in here. And this is just these are just kind of squiggly lines. Everybody gets a little confused about texture, but already just by doing that, just by making some squiggly lines here and some squiggly lines here, it looks like that this area has bumps or ridges on it, and that if you would be able to feel that. All right, let's try to get the ones up here for our knuckles. And I can see the bones kind of popping out slightly, so I'm gonna give a little bit of a notion that that's there. So it's starting to look pretty realistic. Oh, I have this big bump here, so let's make that stand out. My wrist, so now there's this bump for the wrist. All right, looks pretty good. And once again, I mean, I could spend hours on this trying to perfect the detail. This was just a crash course on how to apply contour lines and the cross contour lines that go across it. Just by adding a little bit of value and a little bit of squiggly lines, we were able to create form so that it pops up more, and texture. And the space is already there because we have these lines in the background and we have the hand in front of it. So whenever you put something in front of something else, it implies that there's space. So if we didn't have these lines in the background or any of this, it would just appear as if the hand was floating and it wasn't grounded in reality. And the last thing, obviously, if this was a real piece of art, what we're missing is color. And I'm going to leave that up to you. So you can color this any way you want. But we've just gone over the 7 elements of art: line, shape, value, form, texture, space, and color. And these are the building blocks for any piece of artwork. So if you think back to anything you've ever created or any piece that you've seen, it almost every single time will include all 7 of these, just arranged in a different way. Sometimes, though obviously we left out the color here, you won't have that. So depends on what you're doing and what you want to create as an artist. So now I'm just going to go through, as should you, and work on some of the detail. And if you want at this point, you could hit this up with pen. If you don't like how it looks with the pencil, you could definitely add some extra lines. Like, let's see what it looks like if I come in here and add pen. Oh, that looks pretty good. See, that helps the hand pop out right there because it creates more contrast. It has a darker value on the pen than it does. So I think I'm going to do that for all of those sections that are in shadow. And I'm going to leave the other side a little bit lighter. Ooh, really nice. And I'm just gonna do one more pass on the shadow. You can see, and this time I'm gonna do a cross hatch, so I'm gonna shade in the opposite direction just to kind of heighten it a little bit, give it a little extra flare. So yeah, when you shade in opposite directions, it's called cross hatching. And there we have it, a pretty decent 3D looking hand. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed. All right, man, have a good one. Bye, guys.